Welcome to the Photoshop intro for my Grass and Fields expansion pack. This is just an introduction to how the brushes work, and after this you can go watch the painting demo if you want to see them in action. You can download the brushes from my Gumroad page, and while you're there you can check out the first pack too if you want. You can use these packs together or separately. There's no overlap though. This new set is just an expansion geared toward allowing you to paint a lot more variety in your grass and fields. And I think it's a huge improvement personally, and especially when you use both packs together, you should be able to paint a really big variety of plant life. Once the file's in your downloads, you should find the ABR file, that's the brush file for Photoshop, and you can click the gear icon here in the brushes panel and import the brushes. You can also drag them in if you want. I have them organized into sections, but you can reorganize them however you want. I'm going to take you through the sections and give you an overview of how each type of brush works, and then you're totally welcome to delete any that you don't feel like using because there are 144. Before we get too far, I want to explain a couple of brush panel settings that you can use if you want to make changes to these brushes. You can find the brush panel by going to Window and then clicking on Brush Settings. Here's my brush panel. The first setting is color jitter. You'll notice that some of the brushes have a subtle color variation effect added to them. You can see how the color varies as I'm painting this. And I really like this effect because it helps paint look natural and it cuts down on the amount of detail I need to paint in order to, make a field look realistic. But if you want to turn this effect off or make it more or less pronounced, you can do it here under the color dynamics menu. You can just uncheck the color dynamics box to turn it off completely, or you can slide these little bars around to add color variation or reduce it. I usually only touch the hue, saturation, and brightness bars and leave the other settings alone. The next setting you can experiment with is having a brush stay oriented to the canvas or following the direction of your stroke. So here's kind of what I mean. You can turn this setting off right here. When the angle jitter is set to direction, the brush will follow the direction of your stroke. And when the angle jitter is set to off, the brush will stay oriented vertically, same with the canvas. This is all under the shape dynamics section of the menu. And there's situations where it's useful to have this setting off and other situations where it's useful to have it on. Like if you're painting hills that are going up and down, you may want to turn it on. But I just use my best judgment for which brushes to keep it on for and off for. And if you don't like my choices, you should totally go ahead and change it. Just dropping a quick note that if you turn this setting on for any brush, then it will be designed to brush from left to right. So if you brush from left to right, it'll be the right way up, but if you brush from right to left, then the brush will show up upside down. So just keep that in mind. The final setting I want to point out are transfer settings. When these are set to pen pressure, brushes will be light or low opacity when you press softly, and dark or high opacity when you press firmly. So if you want to add this effect to a brush that doesn't have it, you can set one or both of these settings here to pen pressure. And if you want to take this effect away from a brush, just set these to none or uncheck the transfer setting completely. And yeah, there's situations where each of these are useful or not useful as well. The reason I didn't just include multiple versions of brushes is that there are already 144 brushes in this pack and it seemed borderline excessive already, so please feel free and encouraged even to delete any brushes you don't see yourself using. You can always re-download them later. This first folder is painting brushes, and if you already have regular painting brushes that you like using, no pressure to use these, but I wanted to provide a little handful of basic painting brushes in the style I like using, mainly to use in my tutorials for this set, so that if you're following along, you can use the exact same brushes as me to paint the entire thing. I've got a couple of bristle textured painting brushes, a softer painting brush, a couple of detail brushes, and a rake brush. Next up is a folder specifically for creating standard manicured lawns, like something you might find in a front yard that's been mowed even by a lawnmower. This is a category of brush that my last pack totally didn't have, so now I've got them. These brushes are all meant to be used sideways in left to right motions. There are a couple of block-in brushes, some detail brushes, and a glazed texture brush that is semi-transparent, and they can be used all together to paint a lawn like this. Next up are the grass block-in brushes. These are all designed to be used when blocking in different types of grass, so try them all out, experiment, and find the ones you like best. They're all meant to be used in a sideways, side-to-side motion as well. There are also a couple brushes in here designed for painting the ground showing through in like a patchy field, and some shorter grass block-in brushes as well for like the edges near the exposed ground, kind of that low mossy textured grass. So yeah, try them all out, see which ones you like, and experiment. Following the block-in brushes, we have sunlight dappling brushes. These are designed to add sunlight and shadows to the middle of fields that you have already blocked in and painted. When you brush them side to side like this, you can see that they indicate both the distant grass blades and then also have gaps in the front to indicate grass blades in front as well. Some of them are harder, some of them are softer, and they're all meant to be used together to create sunlight dappling effects like these. Now we get into the detail brushes. These dimensional grass details were painted with highlights and shadows built in, so the brushes have the most opaque pixels where the grass blades would logically have a highlight on the areas where forms turn over. That way, when you use a light colored brush against a dark background, the grass comes out looking dimensional. You can use these dark against light too if you want, but I think they shine and look best when they're used as light against dark, so using a lighter brush against a darker background. These are meant to be used in kind of small dotted strokes, placing the grass details where you want them here and there until you get the effect you want. Alright, moving on to the rest of the grass detail brushes. There is quite a variety in this pack. These brushes are all also used in side-to-side motions, and these are meant to be used kind of throughout the fields you've blocked in to indicate the shape and the texture and the dimension of the grass. You can use similarly shaped detail brushes across a whole field to kind of show that it's one species of grass, or you can vary them in patches and sections to make a big thriving wild field with a bunch of different grass species. I paid attention in this pack to creating shorter and taller grass brushes specifically to make it easier to create a variety of grass lengths, and I also included some seeded grasses and then some of these kind of noisy detail brushes geared toward a rough sort of concept art look, or to add hand painted and textured touches to break up more rendered fields. Windswept grasses are next. There are 10 brushes that face to the right and 10 brushes that face to the left, and these brushes are designed to create fields that are being blown by like a powerful wind. So you can use the block-in brushes to make a base and then add different details on top. They work the same as the rest of the brushes, sideways motions, left to right. These are just specifically for grasses that are leaning and being blown by the wind. The bushes and small plants can be used to accent your fields or to make big areas of foliage and bushes and stuff. Some of these bushes use side-to-side motions like the ones we've been using so far, but others are designed for vertically oriented motions. So if you brush sideways and the plant comes out sideways, it's time to change to up and down motions. Some of these brushes are designed to allow you to build plants by creating a big stem and then adding branch details. Some plants use a top to bottom approach and others use a bottom to top approach. I made decisions about this based on how I planned to use the brushes myself, but if you want to switch it up, you can do so by reversing this setting right here. These long grasses and reeds brushes are also vertically oriented. You can see how we can use these brushes to kind of build our own plants. And with this type of design, we never get exactly the same plant twice, which allows for a lot of variation and for each painting to have a more unique look. Next up are flowers. You can use these to add little pops of color and detail across your fields. You can do it subtly or go all out and make an entire wildflower field. I added a much bigger variety of flowers in this pack, but I didn't repeat any flowers from the last pack, so if you want to have the most variety of wildflowers, you can use both of them together. And then last but not least, I added some little mushrooms for you to add into your fields. I think they're cute. I hope you enjoyed playing around with this pack and using it in your paintings. And next, if you want to see these brushes being used in action, head over to the painting demo. There's a lot more information over there about how I use these brushes to make like a full painting. All right, see you over there.